Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Asta Satya Shishimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anant Koti Vaishnav Vrindi Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaur Bhakti Vrindi Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopalna Shom Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Yamunamai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakti Vrindi Ki Jai, Gaura Premananda, Hari Hari Bolo. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna, All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga and His Divine Grace. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today is the wonderful appearance day of the Pandit, and I'm going to read a little intro and then some of his biography. And then, if I have time, some glorifications. There's some really wonderful verses glorifying. And I keep on wanting to say her because we know this is, Srimati Radharani in the form of Gadadhar Pandit, and has a very different mood. So we'll go ahead and start with the introduction too. And just feel very blessed to be able to share this, because I was also thinking, again, it's such a wonderful reminder that, these are real personalities, right? And they're very real personalities. And for us to be able to read about them and, realize that they were, willing to be here, and Prabhupada was willing, to bring this Krishna consciousness to us so that we can read about these amazing personalities and, inculcate them into our devotional life, and just be, if anything, just have gratitude for the fact, that a Vaishnava, never dies. And so we're actually getting to take their personal association and hearing about these pastimes. I was just thinking about that, how amazing this is, because Gadadhar Pandit is none other than, Srimati Radharani. And, she was willing to be here on this, present on this earth. How fortunate are we to be here and touching the same earth that her feet, were present. It's really kind of overwhelming when you think about it. Because we can start to take it like it's just almost mythical and not really real. But it is. It's very real. So Sri Gaura Hari had so much affection for Sri Gadadhar Pandit that he couldn't be without him for a moment. He appeared a year after Lord Chaitanya. Gadai and Nimai were inseparable as childhood playmates. Peaceful, renounced, serious, self-composed, fond of solitude, Gadar proved quite a contrast to his bosom friend, Gorai, who was fickle, unsteady, whimsical. In Gangadas Pandit's school, Nimai Pandit regularly teased Gadadhar by challenging him with logical questions. Sri Kavi Karnapurna states that in Vrajalila, Gadadhar Pandit is the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, Srimati Radharani. Gadadhar Pandit served as Lord Gaura's chief assistant during his Navadvip Leela. Sri Sri Radha Krishna in Vrindavan appear as Gaura Gadadhara to perform pastimes in Navadvip, in the forest groves beside the Ganges. Gadadhar Pandit is described that no one can describe the characteristics and ecstatic love of him. Therefore, another name for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Gadadhar Pandana, the life and soul of Gadadhar Pandit. And that's from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. One day, while wandering along the bank of the Ganges, Gaurasundar entered a forest grove and sat in a meditative mood. Soon he became enraptured, remembering his Vrindavan pastimes. To enhance the Lord's mood, Mukundadat began singing sweet songs in Purvarag. Sri Gadadhar made a garland of fragrant flowers and lovingly placed it around the Lord's beautiful neck. As Sri Radha used to dress Damodar in Vrindavan, similarly Gadadhar would adorn the radiant form of Lord Gauranga. He would also decorate Lord Chaitanya's bed and bedroom with sweet-smelling flowers. Every day he would make sandalwood paste to rub on Sri Chaitanya's transcendental body. Gaura Gadadhar sat on the root of a tree serving as a raised dais. Sri Nityananda Prabhu sat on Lord Chaitanya's right side. Srivas Pandit decorated them with flowers. Sri Advaitacharya offered arti. Just imagine. Narahari waved a chamra, and Suklambar offered chandan, and Murari Gupta sang the Lord's glories. Vijay, Mukund, Purushottama, Madhava, and Vasudev Ghosh sang a variety of songs in different rags. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed his Nadia Leela. And I was thinking as I was reading this, how how wonderful and enlivening and comforting the association of the devotees, and how important it is to have the association of the devotees and just constantly singing and talking about the pastimes of the Lord. It just, wow. Anyway, so Gadadhar took the renounced order of life and went to Jagannath Puri to be with Lord Chaitanya. Accepting Kshetra Sannyas, a renunciate who never leaves the Dham, he served the deity of Tota Gopinath with full love and devotion. Regularly, Sri Krishna Chaitanya came to relish Sri Gadadhar's Rasika reading of Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Chaitanya concluded his manifest pastimes by entering the deity of Tota Gopinath. Although Gadadhar Pandit was barely 48 when the Lord departed, he quickly became old because of the intense anguish he felt in separation from his beloved Lord Gaurasundar. He couldn't stretch his arms to reach or to offer a garland to his deity. Understanding his servant's difficulty, Sri Tota Gopinath sat down to facilitate Gadadhar's loving service. To this day, Sri Tota Gopinath is the only sitting deity of Krishna. According to some authorities, a short time after Lord Chaitanya's disappearance, Sri Gadadhar Pandit joined his eternal pastimes by entering his beloved deity of Tota Gopinath. His Danta tooth samadhi stands near the Vamsi Gopal temple in Vrindavan. And so again, just thinking about this separation and the love and, how willing, like especially with thinking about Sri Tota Gopinath, sitting down to facilitate his devotees, stimulated the thought of, this is the love between Krishna and his pure devotees, and thinking about Arjuna and him willing, to take on the role of technically what is a Shudra and drive the chariot for Arjuna. There's just so much love, between Krishna and his devotees. And of course, again, hearing these stories and reminding ourselves that that's really what we're working on trying to obtain is a loving, reciprocative relationship with Krishna. So these can be reminders for us to remember how much Krishna loves us and how much we want to love him, and learning how to love him in this process of Krishna consciousness. So that was just kind of an encapsulation. And so I'll go into a little bit more of the pastimes in the biography. So the incarnation of love, who previously was the queen of Vrindavan, Radha, is now the beloved Gaura named Srila Gadadhar Pandit. Swarup Damodar himself indicated that he was Gadadhar's was Raja's goddess of fortune, the Lakshmi who was previously the beloved beloved of Shamasundar and Vrindavan. She today has become the goddess of fortune of love for Gaura and is known as Srila Gadadhar Pandit. Lalita, who is also known as Anuradha, is Radha's closest friend and confidant. She has also entered into Gadadhar, as was shown in the play Chaitanya Chandrodaya, which is from the Gaura Ganadesh Dipika 147 through 50. Gadadhar Pandit and others are the Lord's own energies. I pay thousands of obeisances to their feet. Chaitanya Charitamrita 1141. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears in 6 features. namely as the two types of guru, the devotees of the Lord himself, his incarnation, his expansion, and his energy. According to the principle of simultaneously one and difference, they are all identified with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Anubhashya the Anubhashya to Chaitanya Charitamrita 1:137 through 45. She who was Radha in Krishna's pastimes became Srila Gadadhar Pandit Goswami in Gaura Lila. When Gaura manifested his own identity with Narayan, when Gaura manifests his identity with Narayan, his Shaktis are his wives, Lakshmi Priya and Vishnu Priya. When identifying with Krishna, his Shakti is Srila Gadadhar Pandit. So you can just imagine these relationships and how woven together they are from Krishna Lila into Gaura Lila, being present and manifest on this material world, in this material world. I offer my obeisances to Krishna, who appears in 5 features: as a devotee, as the expansion of a devotee, as an incarnation of a devotee, as the pure devotee, and as the devotional energy. These 5 features all appeared with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his incarnation, and in their association, he joyfully performed the congregational chanting of the holy names. Though he appears in these 5 forms, there is in fact no difference between them. The distinctions arise due to his desire to relish different devotional flavors. Sri Gauranga, Nityananda, Advaita, Gadadhar, and Srivas, etc., make up the Panchatattva, and there is spiritually no difference between them. The Supreme Truth has unlimited different pastimes in order to relish the different tastes of transcendental relationship, and thus he separates into these 5 forms as the form of devotee, the devotional manifestation, the devotional incarnation, the devotional energy, and the pure devotee. Jaya Jaya Nityananda Gadadhara Jivana Jaya Dvaita Tari Bhaktira Sharana. All glories to the life of Nityananda and Gadadhar. All glories to the shelter of all the devotees headed by Advaita. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur comments on the words "the life of Gadadhar" as follows. Srila Gadadhar Pandit Goswami is chief amongst the most intimate devotees of Sri Chaitanya. He is the fountainhead of the entire Shakti Tattva and is thus present equally in Mahaprabhu's Leelas in Navadvip and Nilachala. His childhood home was in Navadvip. Later, when he took sannyas, he went to live in Jagannath Puri, in a garden or tota by the seashore. Pure devotees who wish to enter into the Madhurya Ras or of worship to Radha and Govinda take shelter of Gadadhar Pandit and are also known as Gauranga Mahaprabhu's intimate devotees. And again, that's a reminder for us of thinking about the disciplic succession and our path to this loving relationship or intimate relationship between Radharani and Krishna, and learning to take shelter of the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant, like through the spiritual master, is our connection to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and everything in between, and being able to reach the lotus feet of the Supreme Couple. Those devotees who are not so inclined take shelter of Nityananda Prabhu and engage in pure devotional service in his mood. Some of Mahaprabhu's devotees, such as Narahari, were followers of Srila Gadadhar Pandit Goswami. They took refuge in him because they knew him to be his dearest associate and thus worthy of their service. Some devotees therefore call Chaitanya the life of Nityananda, while others call him the life of Gadadhar. So this is the descriptions of Gadadhar Pandit's early life. Gadadhar Pandit was born in the village of Belete Gram in the Chittagong district of modern Bangladesh in a family of Virendra Brahmins in 1408 of the Shak era, which is 1486 AD. On the dark moon day of the month of Vaishak. His father was Madhava Mishra and his mother Ratnavati Devi. He also had a younger brother named Baninath. He belongs to the Kaishapa Gotra. He lived in the village of Beleti until he was 12 and then moved with his family to Navadvip. Srila Gadadhar Pandit was a brahmachari for his entire life. Ishvara Puripad was very impressed by his indifference to the pleasures of the world and out of affection for him gave him instruction on his own work, Krishna Lilamrita. While Mahaprabhu was delighting in his pastimes as a student, there was no scholar in the town of Navadvip who was not afraid of entering into debate with him. Mahaprabhu would defeat one's position and then show how the same position could be defended. Mukunda, Srivas, and others who knew the joys of the devotional sentiment were afraid of getting involved in such useless debates with Nimai Pandit, so they would avoid him. One day, Nimai Pandit saw Gadadhar and asked him to give the definition of liberation. Gadadhar answered according to the Nyaya school that liberation consisted in the final eradication of all miseries, Adyantika, Dukkha, Nivritti. Nimai then proceeded to show his definition was inadequate. The other devotees who were listening thought how wonderful it would be if such a brilliant scholar became a devotee. And I was just thinking how wonderful it would be just to listen to, to Lord Chaitanya giving all these discourses and these battles. And of course, Mother Krishna Priya is here, so it reminded me of Hridayananda Das Goswami and his breadth and depth of understanding of the Shastras and Sanskrit down to breaking every word down into, its smallest increment. It's just, I can just imagine sitting before Lord Chaitanya and just, your mouth open. I mean, and I guess knowing now who he is, that would be a difference. But when Mahaprabhu returned from Gaya and began to reveal the amazing transformations of love, all the devotees were astonished. Sriman Pandit was the first to see Mahaprabhu's ecstatic symptoms, and he reported this news to all the others who were overjoyed. When Mahaprabhu decided to reveal his true identity to the devotees, he told them to come to the house of Shuklambar Brahmachari. Gadadhar went to Shuklambar's house, but was discreet about his presence there. But when he saw Mahaprabhu become intoxicated with the power of the holy names and overcome by the Sattvikas, he fainted. Mahaprabhu then said to him, Gadadhar, you have such good fortune. From your early childhood, your mind has been fixed on Krishna's lotus feet. Meanwhile, I have wasted my life in useless activities. Though I had obtained the great treasure of human birth, by my misfortune, I made no use of it. Whenever Mahaprabhu became too overcome by his ecstasies, Gadadhar would calm him down. One day, as Mahaprabhu was crying out in separation, "Where is Krishna? Where is Krishna?" Gadadhar said to him, "Your Lord Krishna is hidden in your heart." As soon as he heard this, Mahaprabhu began to claw at his chest, but luckily Gadadhar was able to stop him by holding his hands and calming him by saying, "Krishna will come shortly. Be patient." And this, of course, reminds us of Hanuman, right? And hearing about, the divine couple being in his heart. When Sachi saw how Gadadhar was clever in handling her son, she asked him to always stay by his side to protect him, which of course is natural between Radha and Krishna and Gadadhar and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Once Mahaprabhu was calling out the name of his dear associate, Pundarik Vijayanidhi, and this is the pastime of Gadadhar taking initiation from Pundarik. Once Mahaprabhu was calling out the name of his dear associate, Pundarik Vijayanidhi, saying, "Pundarik, my father," and crying. None of the devotees present were able to understand what Mahaprabhu meant. When they asked him, he told them about Pundarik Vijayanidhi and explained that he would shortly be coming to Navadvip Mayapur. When Pundarik did come to Navadvip, he played the role of a great sense enjoyer in order to dissimulate his greatness. Mukunda Dutt was a former resident of Chittagong and knew Pundarik Vijayanidhi, who was formerly Radharani's father, Vishubhanu, very well. One day he told Sri Gadadhar Pandit that he wanted to introduce him to a very advanced Vaishnava and took him to Pundarik's house. Mukunda introduced the two of them, and Vijayanidhi happily engaged Gadadhar in conversation. Gadadhar, however, who had been indifferent to sensual pleasure since he was very young, began to have doubts about Pundarik Vijayanidhi when he was when he saw the expensive furnishings by which he was surrounded, the rich sheets that were white as foam of milk, the perfumes in the air, the pandi chewed, and I'm sure we've heard this pastime many times, and his hair was slicked back, he's all perfumed, and chewing pan and betel, I'm sure. And so Gadadhar was having all this doubt about him, and just couldn't even imagine, you know, what Mukunda was talking about. And so um, Mukunda, having seen this doubt that was, running across Gadadhar's face, decided to reveal Pundarik's true devotional nature to Gadadhar. So he recited a verse in glorification of Krishna from the Bhagavad. Hobakiyam stanakala kutam jigasamyaya payaya dapya sadbi Lepegatim datra yuchitam tatonyam kamvadaluyam sharanam prapadye. How truly amazing. The sister of Bakasura, the evil Putna, was sent on a mission to kill Krishna. He drank the Kalakuta poison that was mixed with her breast milk, and despite her evil intentions, awarded her the position of a wet nurse, as Ambika Kalimba in Goloka. Who is more merciful than he that I should take shelter of him? Srimad Bhagavatam 3:2-23. The instant that Pundarik Vijayanidhi heard this couplet, he began to cry, "Ha, Krishna," and fell to the ground in a faint. Extraordinary ecstatic symptoms began to show on his body. Srila Gadadhar Pandit Goswami was amazed to see this reaction and began to regret the offensive thoughts he had been having just moments before. Later, Mahaprabhu advised Gadadhar that the best way to become free of the offense was to take initiation from Pundarik Vijayanidhi, so he became his disciple. And of course, this is, a reminder to us, and I've been really actually meditating on this a lot, how it's so important not to take for granted what we see visually and make assumptions about what may be going on internally with any given devotee or any given person. Because it's so easy. It's so easy, to make assumptions, about how or what somebody's motivations or intentions are internally versus, what we may see externally. It's just really super important reminder. And, again, I've been thinking about that and, you know, in so many different ways, in observing other people and, trying to make my mind less judgmental, which is so typical of the mind because it loves to do that, accepting, rejecting, and, designations and all these other things that it likes to do, and trying to reconnect with the heart of a devotee. So the Lord's constant companion. Srila Gadadhar Pandit Goswami was Mahaprabhu's constant companion. He participated in Mahaprabhu's water sports after the conversion of Jagai and Madai. He acted in the play about Krishna Lila in Chandrasekhar's house. He observed the great Epiphany Mahaprakash in Srivas Angam. He was there when the Kazi was converted and when Mahaprabhu took sannyas. He accompanied Mahaprabhu to Puri, where he joined him in cleaning the Gundaja temple, bathing in Narendra Sarovar, etc. So these are all the pastimes that they had together, spending time together. At Chandrasekhar's house, in the first act of the play about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan that Mahaprabhu staged, Haridas played the part of, just amazing. It's just like imagining all these personalities taking on these roles, having a play. We have our plays too. We have, Champakalata who does all these wonderful plays and dances, and it's a way for us to become absorbed and joyful, in our spiritual life by hearing about and participating in some way, whether we're observing these plays, hearing about, singing and chanting and dancing. with in whatever way our body is capable and with limitations we have. So Haridas Thakur, who's the Namacharya, thank you, I was thinking the holy name Acharya, played the part of the village constable. Srivas Pandit played Narada Muni and Mahaprabhu Rukmini. In the second act, Gadadhar also dressed as a woman, at which time Mahaprabhu said, Gadadhar is part of my Vaikuntha family. Afterward, Mahaprabhu dressed as the primal energy and gave joy to everyone in the form of the mother of the universe. I mean, just imagine this. The devotees too glorified him with hymns and addressed to the Divine Mother. So Gadadhar's Kshetra, this is the pastime of Gadadhar's Kshetra sannyas, which is to live in one place, renounced, and never leave. Srila Gadadhar Pandit Goswami went to live in Puri as a Kshetra